Welcome back. This is Meet the President, and we're here with presidential candidate Dr. Ekuru Aukot from Third Way Alliance, Kenya. Thanks for staying with us. So let's talk about the big one in the room, which is corruption. There's been a discussion in the country after the launch of what is called a red card campaign, essentially saying that certain people of questionable integrity should be barred from running for elective office across the board. Mm-hmm. What is your position on this issue?
Well, I think it's commendable that a section of the Kenyan society is coming out to say that certain leaders are not fit to hold public office. I think they're not saying anything new other than what exactly is explained in Chapter 6 of the Kenya Constitution on leadership and integrity. But I thought when I saw the names that they were proposing, they were a bit selective. They were a bit biased. Because if you ask me, who really should get the first red card?
Tell us, who should?
I think Uhuru Kenyatta and Uhuru Ruto should get the red card.
Why?
First of all, it's not clear. We are not so sure about their integrity. Their integrity is questionable as far as the post-election violence is concerned. To this very day, that issue has not been addressed. And let's not sugarcoat it, because the truth for the matter is that Kenyans died, many were displaced, and they became the two ICC suspects, the last two ICC suspects.
Those matters were dispensed with?
No, they were not dispensed with. I mean, if you're a journalist, Yvonne, I expect you that you must have read the ruling of the ICC, and it said in these particular words that there was intolerable incidences of witness interferences and political meddling. Now, who could have possibly meddled with the trial or interfered with the witnesses? Now, I don't know the nitty-gritty of stuff, but I'm saying if you're going to use the integrity card against any other Kenyan, then you must start by the people who are ruling this country today. You must start with the people in the opposition who we know have been implicated in various corruption scandals. So that's where we should have really started. I do not think, I agree, even if today to me, if somebody told me that Ekuru, we doubt your integrity and there's prima facie evidence, as we say in law, I think then, the ordinary, the honorable thing to do normally is not even offer yourself for public office.
Are you then saying that should any questions arise about your integrity, that you would have no problem with your name being on the red card and would therefore remove yourself from the running of the presidency?
You see, integrity is very personal, it's very individual. It's about self-respect for oneself. And I think for me, if there are issues, I mean, in the court of public opinion, if, for example, your character is doubted, and it's out there in the public opinion, integrity requires that you don't actually insist on public office.
Is it just a matter of doubt, Dr. Because anybody can come up and say, they doubt your credibility, they doubt your integrity, that there are issues of accountability surrounding some of your actions or some of the work that you have done. And that brings us back to, Chapter 6 and its enforceability as it has been drafted at the moment, because that is now the big question, and no better person to speak to this issue than you, who was, the secretary to the committee of experts. And many people are saying, well, okay, so take a look at Chapter 6. Is it an ethical standard versus a criminal standard? Where are we with this one?
Integrity also is about the self. How you view yourself, how you see yourself in the eyes of society.
But some of these people probably view themselves as people of integrity and should run.
Yvonne,
if it's a matter of how you view yourself, then nobody would certainly say
Yvonne,
they are...
I taught law at the University of Warwick for 4 years. I taught constitutional administrative law. And one of the things that I really took home with me, my experience in England, was that there is what they call the Constitutional Convention of Resignation. And this is how it works. If there is doubt in you holding public office, you give honor to that office. And that's exactly what we are also saying in Chapter 6. You do not bring disrepute to the office you are holding. And that's a question, a factor
But then the Constitution also offers protection to persons, and there's the theory of being innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, but we also know that in this country, people hardly accept that they're in the wrong.
Shouldn't that be the work of the courts, though? Because you're saying we leave it to the individual to then decide whether they feel they've got the integrity.
Okay, so let me tell you how we define leadership at Third Way Alliance. Leadership for us at Third Way Alliance is a value. It's a value that must cascade downwards. And therefore, if that value is not protected at the very top, at the highest office, then it creates a perception that it's okay to be corrupt, it's okay to be a thief, it's okay to be the loud mouth and get yourself in public position. But on this question of theft of public money, I think the truth for the matter is we can try to sugarcoat it, but I think in this country, we have actually normalized theft of public money. We don't recognize it as corruption in Kenya. I do not know in your mother tongue whether there is a definition of the word corruption. Certainly not in my Turkana word. I mean, mother tongue, there is no such word. But I know there is theft. And I think here is a situation where if you are a governor and you are entrusted with public money that is meant to go into health, education, roads, security, water for your people, agriculture and all that, and you are not able to account for that money. I think for me that's the reason why we passed Chapter 6, and Chapter 6 basically says Kenyans wanted a certain type and character of leader, that a leader who, when holding that public office, must ensure that office has some respectability.
Yet, Dr. Aukot, many of those Kenyans did pass some of these individuals who are on that red card through the party primaries. And yet you're talking about this is what Kenyans wanted.
Just because the system is rotten doesn't mean that we run away from a value system. I mean, just because people kill each other or kill the other doesn't normalize murder. Okay. All I'm saying to you is this. Leadership is a value. And there is a reason why Kenyans passed Chapter 6. And of course, this is a question of both leadership and the voters. So it's up to the voters themselves to say, okay, we doubt so-and-so's character. We do not want that person. It's the people of Kenya who actually put leaders into office. Okay. But it's also incumbent upon you as an individual to say, I think if I go into that office, am I going to bring disrepute to that office?
Okay.
If I'm accused
it's about people sort of creating or asking questions. Is that the threshold, that if people doubt your integrity, your value system, is it that simple?
Listen, I'm not saying that somebody will just wake up from nowhere and accuse Yvonne Okwara of being of questionable character. There has to be some irreducible minimums. For example, I'll give you an example. I'm sure you've read the last Auditor General report. And in the last Auditor General report, there are 3 types of findings. There is what they call adverse opinion, qualified opinion, disclaimer of opinion. In accounting terms, and I'm not an accountant, but I have sat down with my accounting friends, including the chairman of our party, Miruru Waweru, who is a CPA, and he explains to me these terms, and actually it means these people cannot account for the money. In other words, the money is lost.
Okay.
So for example,
not being able to account for the money and it being lost is not the same.
Auditing is the only scientific way you can approve people have spent money in the right way or in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And today, the finding in this country is that 47 counties of Kenya, in equal measure, have stolen public funds. In other words, all those 47 governors today seeking re-election ideally should not be cleared to run.
So tell us how you would deal with that. There was a bit of concern that was raised, I think, when on Morning Express, right here on KTN News, you said, and I quote, that you would deal with it in a high-handed manner. And you also talked about being a benevolent dictator. What would a high-handed manner mean? You are a man of the law and a man of the Constitution.
First of all, listen, when I say the high-handedness, I think dealing with corruption requires some degree of toughness. You do not have to sugarcoat it. You don't have to deal with corruption as if it doesn't happen. I know corruption, theft happens every day in this country. One thing that I will do, applying again my legal skills. I'm a trained lawyer. I'm a practicing lawyer. Applying my legal skill, I will ensure that people go to jail, and people must be jailed for failing to account for theft of public money. I will definitely recover assets without any mercy. I will ensure that people who steal money actually are in the hall of shame. I'll make sure that there is restriction, for example, on how procurement takes place in this country. Those
measures exist. Where's the loophole?
The loophole is in the failure of political leadership in this country. There is no political goodwill to fight corruption and theft of public money in this country. The truth for the matter, and you know this very well, that the current president, who I want to replace in August the 8th, threw his hands in the air and said, what do you guys want me to do? In other words, he gave up. You cannot do that as a chief officer of a country. I'll give you another example. In neighboring Rwanda, everybody knows in Kagame's Rwanda, you cannot even imagine the solicitation of a bribe from anybody because they know the top man in this country does not take corruption.
Would you model your leadership around sort of the ethos of Kagame?
Not necessarily, but I'm saying he's done a very good job in fighting corruption in his country, so much so that when a policeman stops you and you behave in a manner likely to suggest that you want to bribe or to compromise that policeman, that's already a problem. So in other words,
so,
he has instilled certain discipline and value in his country. And listen.
And some say it's because he's a benevolent dictator, which you said you had no problem with.
By the way, where we have reached as a country, I will tell you this without flinching. I think this country needs a benevolent dictator.
Isn't the word benevolent dictator an oxymoron? If you are a dictator, being benevolent, those two words, surely.
So let me give you again examples of countries in the world where people have been accused as benevolent dictators, but today they are reaping the benefits of that. I think benevolent dictatorship is not necessarily a bad thing. It's about ensuring that you do not tolerate certain bad manners in the country. Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore was described as a dictator for many, many years. Today in Singapore, even a beggar, a homeless person on the streets of Singapore is a millionaire. The GDP in that country is about $33,000 per year. That is the product of a benevolent dictator. Mohamed Mahathir of Malaysia, back in the days, people called him as a benevolent dictator. But it took Malaysia to where it is today. South Korea, the same thing. So really, I think for me, where we have reached, we have allowed certain bad manners to seep into our value system, to institutionalize so much so that it's okay today to just a Kavura to walk into NYS, walk away with 1.4 billion Kenya shillings, and we say that's okay. No, I think we need somebody who can actually be tough and say, we are not going to tolerate certain narratives in this country. That's the extent to which I believe we need some benevolent dictatorship in the way in which we do things.
Okay.
We cannot tolerate certain mannerisms.
All right. It's
ruining the country. It's ruining society. You know, tribalism. You need somebody who can say, no, this is nonsense.
Okay, so you've talked about values, and you said, you know, at some point, if somebody starts to raise certain questions, you know, a value system begins with self. Let me read you a post that was done online, actually in November last year. It's from Dr. Chitai Murabula. It's an open letter to you, sir. And he raises a number of issues in the manner in which, you know, things are run at Third Way Alliance Kenya. He talked about an appalling lack of democracy. He says decision-making is top-down, does not enjoy the mandate or confidence of the members, the leadership. He said the interim leadership is wholly handpicked from your own cronies. This makes them beholden to you. He talked of lack of decorum within Third Way leadership. He said simple matters regarding management of conflicts within Third Way. You have been completely unable to deliver. He also talked about psychophancy and the cult of personality, saying Ekuru for president is not a plan. It cannot in itself transform our society. He raised quite a number of issues, including, allow me to finish for the sake of our viewers. He also talked of the use of tribalism as a campaign tool by yourself. He said, he saw firsthand ethnic mobilization that we had been condemning, and by we he means Third Way Alliance, that you had been condemning. He says there was the reenactment of the Mtuwetu narrative, even right down to the picking of the camel symbol. Could you talk to us about some of these allegations? And you yourself talked about somebody raising doubts. And he says, essentially, at least by this post that was done in November last year, that you are seeking to maintain the very same status quo that you claim to be trying to do away with or dismantle.
You know, Yvonne, I don't know. I do not want us to generate my candidate into such simplistic and cheap descriptions of a disgruntled fellow who left Third Way for many months, and when he was called to be reprimanded by not even by me, by the committee of Third Way, he could not. So really, I will not really go into that. But I will tell you this. First of all, question around tribalism. Why do you think Ekuru Aukot, honestly, coming from the Turkana community, will boast of playing tribal politics when we know that the numbers of the people, I mean, the community where I come from, will not even elevate me to the presidency? I mean, that's absolute nonsense. And I don't think really we should cheapen Third Way Alliance, the candidate, because of a disgruntled. After all, we found out that that guy was actually a mole from Jubilee.
Oh,
he
was a mole.
He was actually.
Dr. with all due respect, you have been called a mole of Jubilee as well.
Called, but
you are
listen,
now doing the same with Dr.
This is a fellow who was in the advisory committee of Jubilee on matters of health. And when he could not get an appointment in Jubilee, he came to Third Way and he couldn't perform. And he was, I mean, basically he left Third Way. And for me, we excused him.
So are these allegations enough to cast doubt on your integrity as a presidential
candidate? There's no substantiation. If you say, for example, that Ekuru Aukot is mobilizing along tribal lines, come on. You are a very intelligible woman, I believe. You can tell for a fact that even if I mobilize all the Turkanas in this world, leave alone Kenya, they cannot make me president of Kenya.
All right.
So that's really a mediocre, a malicious claim to make. I mean, I don't think they hold any waters at all.
Let's talk about numbers and mobilization of that. The 2/3 gender rule, why have we been unable to implement it? There's been the numbers issue. And while we speak about that, how are you going to be able to get the numbers in the National Assembly, considering, Dr. Aukot, that your party is only fielding 2 MPs and 3 senators? Surely it needs much more than that to be able to pass through.
We have 85 aspirants out there.
In total?
In total.
But in the National Assembly, how many? 2 MPs and 3 senators.
I don't have the figures.
This is the final figure from the IBC that's been given to us. Yes. So with 2 MPs and 3 senators, how do you believe you're going to be able to push through not just the 2/3 gender rule, which is an important conversation, and some say an important, well, a failure to some extent of this administration, but indeed to push through legislation that is required to run the country, budgets and such like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, I think you raise a very important point about, gender rule and stuff like that. Third Way Alliance is bringing into the table issue-based politics. And which is why for us, if you look at our 5 pillars, which of course you've not allowed me to go through, our pillars is based on the issues that affect Kenyans. And I think for us, we are trying to bring in a leadership that is responsive to the needs of people. And if that responsiveness is about the issues of Kenyans, then it should not be a problem to be able to push right bills, right policies in
But yet that
Parliament.
is how the politics of this country works, and which is probably why a number of legislations aren't passed through in this country. The truth is, Dr. you do need numbers in Parliament to push through this legislature. If it was a matter of issues, surely the 2/3 gender rule would have been pushed through by now.
Yvonne, I mean, I thought you could tell me on the rivers that the current tyranny of numbers in Parliament, what have they achieved for us? Other than desecrate on this constitution, offend this constitution, the failure to even pass the gender rule. So I think for me, for that very reason you cite, is the reason why we at Third Way Alliance do not want to be bogged into the question that this is the way things have been going on in Kenya. The tyranny of numbers have been.
So how will you mobilize numbers if you've got 2 MPs, and this is assuming that all of them win, your 2 MPs and the 3 senators that you are fielding across the country? How then do you mobilize people and other MPs from different political persuasions into passing through simple things like the budget, like division of revenue?
Yeah, well, I guess you're not listening to me. I'm telling you that our politics is issue-based. We are going to talk about issues that affect this country. If it's about a budget, we are going to debate that regardless of tribe or numbers or party. So it's up to the people of Kenya to see who out there is actually against the issues that offend them. Look, the price of unga today has nothing to do with the numbers in Parliament. This is an issue that concerns every Kenyan, whether you are allied to whatever political party or you're from which tribe. So, as I said, we are trying to bring in issue-based politics in this country, and I believe the people of Kenya are not stupid not to see the need for issue-based politics, because for the longest time, we've been mobilized around those numbers, and by the numbers you refer to, you're actually referring to tribe. Just say tribe. And I think what has tribe actually achieved to us so far? Nobody today eats tribe. Today is the end of...
But how do you dismantle the tribal sort of narrative that is there? It's certainly not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, listen, we are not naive that this thing is going to happen overnight, but we are also not stupid enough to keep on sitting and accepting that it's okay for people to practice tribalism and continue doing the bad things. We are going to challenge, we are challenging that narrative, which is why I think, I think it was one of the candidates who said earlier that we are happy with as many Kenyans as possible bringing in their ideas to bear on this presidential campaign. So just because this is the way we've been doing things, doesn't mean that we accept them. I am here to say, ukabila ni ujinga. We cannot take ukabila to bunge the way we are passing legislation, or the way, because this issue is
and so you'll be able to what? Appeal to the better senses of all these other MPs who are there, who are not the majority members, whom you will be unable to whip because they are not in your party?
You know, Yvonne, why do you assume that members of parliament cannot work on one single issue? Even
You're
today,
the one who's just said that the members of parliament have failed in terms of the two-thirds gender rule and a number of other issues. So there obviously has been a failure to pass this.
Yeah, of course there's been a failure. Because why? Because they're playing the politics of party, they're doing politics of tribe, they're playing politics of personality. We are saying we are challenging all that. We are not going to play politics of party. That's why our party, we are very proud by the Third Way Alliance that even though we are a small party that just came the other day, we have got these 85 aspirants, in our own small way, we are going to put our narrative that is based on the issues that affect this country. And we are not going to be deterred by the fact that we don't have the majority. I mean, listen, revolutions are never started by a majority. It is an individual who conceives of an idea and actually it blossoms and the numbers will grow.
Yeah.
And
but
we
your
hope,
numbers will be...
And we hope.
How will you grow the numbers?
We will grow
this revolution that
we will grow these numbers the moment people see that Third Way Alliance is actually different from the two formations currently that we are competing with, which are based on tribe, based on personality, based on either populism or money. And that's how different we are. You know, and we are also telling Kenyans, for the last 54 years, you've been governed by the same folks for all this time. What has been the benefit, honestly? As I said, I think this morning to Gitonga, the pangs of hunger, whether you come from a village where the president comes from today or my village in Kapedo where I come from, are the same. So it doesn't really matter. And I think for me, we need to go beyond this fixation we have with personalities and parties and tribe. Because none of us chose really to be born a Kisii or a Turkana or a Luya. And precisely for that reason why Third Way Alliance is confronting the animal of negative ethnicity and tribalism in this country. We are keen to depolarize that. Even if we are going to be 2 or 5 of us, we will talk against that. We are going to do that without any apology.
All right, and that's a good place to leave our discussion. 1 hour is gone. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Ekuru Aukot.
You didn't give me the chance though to speak about my 5 pillars.
Well, we hope you would speak about them and some of the issues that are bedeviling the country.
You are the script which you are basically interested in reading, which is okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, presidential candidate of the Third Way Alliance, Kenya. I want to take a look at some of your feedback on social media. File a case in court and prove your case. Stop complaining forever or be quiet. Okay, so those are some of your views that are coming in. Remember, the hashtag is Meet the President. Gadara says it's becoming quite clear that Aukot does not have a plan to govern. Joel Mayaka Ongosi says, Aukot is not realistic, he's going for fame. Michael Amuge says, indeed, Aukot is very honest in his arguments. He is real. I like it. There's so much more. Cultured Man says, we need unity like Rwanda. Current crop of leaders are thoughtless and power-hungry. Socialism is the antidote. And then there's so much more. Good man, great ideas. Let's see. Good man, great ideas, bad timing. Let's see what the 8th of August brings. We hope to see you on the campaign trail as we head towards that. Thanks very much for making the time. That has been the first episode of Meet the President. Tomorrow we'll be speaking to yet another presidential candidate. You want to stay with us and find out who that will be. Keep the conversation going on social media. The hashtag is Meet the President. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Good night.